Here's something that might surprise you. The biggest financial risk in retirement isn't running out of money. For most people, it's actually the exact opposite. It's dying with too much. Research from the Institute for Fiscal Studies shows that the average UK retiree still has most of their pension wealth intact well into their 70s. People who spend their entire careers saving are finding it almost physically impossible to start spending. And I don't mean they're being cautious. I mean they're living smaller lives than they need to. Turning down holidays, skipping meals out, keeping the heating that degree lower than they'd like. Not because they can't afford it, but because something in their brain just won't let them. So today, I want to talk about why that happens, what's actually going on in your head when you look at your pension pot and feel fear instead of freedom, and what you can actually do about it. Because if you've worked for 30 or 40 years to build that pot, you deserve to actually enjoy it. Let me paint a picture you might recognise. You've got a pension pot, let's say £500,000, maybe more, maybe less, but you've got something meaningful saved. You've got your state pension coming in, and on paper, you're fine. But every time you think about booking that trip or replacing the car or even just treating yourself to something nice, there's this voice in your head that says, but what if I need that later? Sound familiar? You're not alone, and you're not being irrational, but you are being influenced by some very specific psychological forces. Let me walk you through the three big ones. Firstly, you've got loss aversion, and this is the pain of spending outweighing the pleasure of having. The Nobel Prize winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman showed that we feel losses roughly twice as intensely as equivalent gains. Losing £100 hurts about twice as much as finding £100 feels good. Now think about what happens when you withdraw money from your pension. Your brain doesn't code that as I'm paying myself for a life well earned. It codes it as a loss. The number goes down, and that feels like danger. This is why so many retirees will happily spend income, like their state pension or defined benefit income, and a bit of the interest, but won't touch the capital, even when the capital is there precisely to be spent. Here's a behavioural insight for you. If you feel a knot in your stomach when you see your pension balance drop, that's loss aversion doing its job. It kept your ancestors alive, but in retirement, it can keep you trapped. Okay, force number 2 is the identity shift, and this is the move from saver to spender. Here's one that doesn't get talked about enough, although I've talked about it a lot on this channel. For your entire working life, you were rewarded for saving. Your employer matched your contributions, and your financial advisor told you to put more in. Your annual statement showed a number going up, and that felt really good. Saving was your identity. You were responsible and you were sensible. Then one day, someone says, right, now spend it. And your entire financial identity has to flip overnight. That's not a maths problem. That's a psychological earthquake. A lot of retirees I've worked with describe this as feeling almost guilty for spending, like they're doing something wrong, because for decades, spending was the thing they were told to resist. Force number 3 is fear of the unknown. Kind of, how long is a piece of string? Look, this third force is uncertainty, and it's a big one. You don't know how long you're going to live. You don't know what care might cost. You don't know what inflation will do over the next 20 or 30 years. And when the brain faces that much uncertainty, it defaults to the safest option. Do nothing. Spend nothing. Hoard. Psychologists call this ambiguity aversion. When we can't calculate risk precisely, we overestimate it. So a retiree with £500,000 saved might live as though they have £200,000 because the uncertainty makes the number feel unreliable. Now, I know some of you are watching this thinking, well, what's wrong with being careful? Better to have too much than too little. And I hear you. But I want to challenge that a bit, because there is a real cost to underspending. It's not just a cost that shows up on your bank statement. It's the holiday you didn't take when you were fit enough to enjoy it. It's the home improvement you put off for 5 years until it became urgent and twice the price. It's the grandchildren's experience you could have shared but didn't because it felt extravagant. It's the heating you kept a bit low last winter because you were watching the meter. There's a concept in retirement planning called go-go, slow-go, and no-go years. Your 60s and early 70s are typically your most active years in retirement. That's when you travel, when you socialise, when you do things. By your late 70s and 80s, spending naturally declines because you're doing less. The tragic irony is that most retirees are at their most frugal during the very years when spending would give them the most joy. They're saving money they'll never need during the window when they could have used it the most. And here's the number that really brings this home. Research suggests that a significant proportion of retirees die with the majority of their pension savings still intact. Not because they planned to leave an inheritance, but because they were too afraid to spend. That money represented possibilities they never took. Okay, so if these psychological forces are so powerful, what do we actually do about them? I want to give you 3 practical reframes that I've seen work with real people. Reframe 1 is to think in income, not lump sums. One of the most powerful things you can do is stop looking at your pension as a pot and start thinking of it as a monthly income. £500,000 in a pot feels precious and finite, but £2,000 a month for the next 25 years, that feels manageable. That feels like a salary. This is a well-documented, well-researched behavioural effect. When people see their wealth expressed as income, they spend more confidently and more appropriately. The number hasn't changed, but how your brain processes it has. Reframe 2 is to give your money a job. Unallocated money creates anxiety. When your pension is just one big number sitting there, every withdrawal feels like you're raiding the whole thing. But what if you divided that money into clear categories? This portion is for day-to-day living. This portion is for enjoyment, like holidays and meals out and gifts. And this portion is your safety net for later life. And this portion over here is genuinely set aside for any inheritance you want to leave. When every pound has a purpose, spending from the right pot doesn't feel reckless. It feels like exactly what you planned. Reframe 3 is to calculate the cost of not spending. We're great at calculating what things cost, but we rarely calculate what not doing things costs. That week in the Algarve you didn't book. In 2 years, you might not be fit enough to go. That kitchen you're putting off. Every day you delay is a day you're living in a kitchen you don't enjoy. Try writing down 3 things you'd love to do this year but have been putting off because of cost. Then look at your finances and honestly ask, can I actually afford this? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. The barrier isn't money, it's permission. Before I wrap up, I want to touch on something that plays into all of this, the state pension. From April this year, 2026, the full new state pension will be £12,548 a year. Now, for a lot of retirees, this becomes an anchor, like a psychological baseline. They think that's my income, everything else in savings I shouldn't really touch. But the state pension was never designed to fund your whole retirement. It's a foundation. The private pension you've built up is meant to sit on top of that, and together, they're your retirement income, not one or the other. Here's a useful exercise. Add up your state pension plus a sustainable withdrawal rate from your private pension. Let's say 5%. If you've got £500,000 in a pension, that's £25,000 a year from that pension on top of your state pension. That's nearly £38,000 a year. And if you have a spouse or a partner, then that would be around £50,000 a year. Suddenly that feels different, doesn't it? And remember, the first £12,570 of income is tax-free under your personal allowance. So a good chunk of that is coming to you without any tax at all. And we'll get into the tax side properly in a future video. But the point is, most retirees have more usable income than they think. So let me leave you with this. If you've spent your career building up a pension and you're now sitting in retirement feeling anxious about spending it, there is nothing wrong with you. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from loss. But retirement isn't about protection, it's about living. And the money you've saved is the tool that makes that living possible. Now, one of the most powerful ways to overcome this anxiety is to give your money structure, to divide it into clear buckets so your brain knows what's safe, what's for spending, and what's for the future. That's exactly what I'm going to cover in a future video, a strategy called bucketed income, and it's a game changer for retirement peace of mind. If that sounds useful, make sure you hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss it. And if this video has made you think about your own retirement spending differently, leave me a comment below. I will read and respond to every single one of them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.